Hello and welcome to Beyond the Slipstream. I'm Justin and this is my brother Matt. And today on the show, I see Italy, I see France, I see Jonas Vingegaard's extra pair of pants. Yes, it was a wild week of wardrobe malfunctions, of wacky weather patterns, and wins for some teams that don't always figure into the conversation. The racing action at the two biggest stage races of the year so far was, let's say, pretty good. But the competition in our fantasy league was outstanding. Yes, this week we got the 2026 debut of the aforementioned Jonas Vingegaard at Paris-Nice, a debut that was hotly anticipated since he did not start the UAE Tour a few weeks ago. Isaac Del Toro took top honors at the other stage race, Tirreno-Adriatico. But for us, the big story this week is EF Education Easy Post, our beloved American squad who was until now winless in 2026. They had 2 stage wins by week's end, and a few other smaller teams had some notable successes as well. We'll get into all that on the show today. We'll recap a wild week in our 2026 Cycling Fantasy League. And as always, we'll finish out with more nasty weather adventures in the Broom Wagon. Allez. Welcome to the show, everybody. Real quick, we wanted to get into, just before we get into the racing, we are going to be changing our format again a little bit. We're going back to our original name for our cycling show at Beyond the Slipstream, and we are going to take a less rigid recap type system and more... we're going to focus on the storylines that make these races really interesting for us as fans, to hopefully make them a little bit more accessible to a broader audience, as opposed to just a breakdown of, kilometer of all of these races that we watch. Anything you want to say on it?
Yeah, we're just trying to tighten it up a little bit. It's a bit of an ask to just listen to us drone on and on about, every single stage of every single race, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't really serve the audience, I think, that we are looking for. So we're trying to divert the focus more towards our personality and kind of like what our individual personal takes on the racing are. It's going to make the show a little bit shorter, hopefully, and just a little bit more concise and a little bit more streamlined. We also knew at the outset that there's, it's a learning process. This is the first podcast we ever did. We now have 2, and we've learned a ton in that almost year and a half that we've been doing this. And we kind of have a much clearer idea of what we want this show to be. And so that pivot begins with today's show. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad to have the old name back, because Beyond the Slipstream, that's a good name. And that makes sense for what we're doing here with this show. That's the right name for it.
Yeah,
so
we were on the right track for that originally. So you are absolutely correct. Well, let's start with the return of Jonas Vingegaard. Returns to Paris-Nice. It's his debut for this year. We did not see him at UAE because of injury and illness. So this is the first time that we've got to look at the number one contender to King Tadej Pogačar. And let's just say he looked pretty darn good. He's definitely back, that's for sure.
Many questions have been answered by Jonas's performance in this race. I mean, he was dominant. He never looked stressed, although in his post-race interview after stage 1, that Luke Lamperti won, he was not happy. Apparently, it was like full gas from 60 kilometers out on that race, just totally insane, and he felt very unsafe. Although the team did great work keeping him safe and still trying to set up for an Axel Zingle sprint on stage one. But overall, especially when it went uphill, like he never looked stressed. He was in control, cool as a cucumber. He was animated in his post race interviews. Yeah, he was the Jonas I think that everybody's been hoping for to
Yes.
because he is our absolute number one best possible hope. He's humanity's only hope to beat the alien army of one that is Tadej Pogacar. So for that reason, very very
Yes.
happy to see his performance this week.
I don't want to, as good as he was, I do want to throw a quick little shout out to Vic Campenarts, who is his like number one lieutenant now. Like, what a pickup for that team! They saw the writing on the wall when they picked him up, like, and they rescued him off of a small team and pulled him in, and he has been nothing but just the absolute soldier for him for the last year and a half. So, Vic Campenarts did a hell of a job this week keeping him safe and doing the work and work in the front. And I mean, just all of it. So, I mean, they did a very, very good job, and it bodes well for them going into Grand Tour season for sure.
Did you see the photo that they put out? Like maybe it was before stage 5 or 6 or something like that
With
of
the umbrella.
Jonas. I just want to add like a caption. I mean, it was a photo of Jonas and Victor Campenarts walking in the rain, in their full kit. But the rain, it was like pouring rain. And Jonas was holding a white umbrella over the head of Victor Campenarts, who was walking along in. He had plastic bags over his shoes. Jonas did not have plastic bags on his shoes. Campenarts had plastic bags. It was the silliest photo you've ever seen. I mean, Campenarts also has like the breathe right strip over his nose, so he's just like he's looking like his nerdy self, and he's got there Jonas is like his nursemaid next to him. it
So
was, it was a funny picture.
we're gonna get into to the style choices this week here in a bit. But do you think that Jonas wasn't wearing the rain booties because like he had already had so much fashion controversy by that point in the week?
It's very possible.
And he
It
was
was
just like, he's like,
that was a
oh
funny
yeah,
picture.
somebody's gonna definitely take my picture. I think I'm gonna hold off on putting on the plastic, water booties.
The thing that amuses me more is thinking about what you were just saying, Campenarts being his number one lieutenant. So Jonas is out there. Okay, Victor, are you okay? You okay? Your shoes good? All right, you good? How are your legs feeling? Do you have your breathe right strip? Are you ready? Because I'm really gonna need you out there today. That was just a funny picture. And then right after that, they showed a picture of some guy from Alpecin wearing a full blown like snorkeling mask on the podium.
Well, that's the other big storyline this week is weather. There was snow, there was rain, there was everything you can think of. As far as these races are concerned, you had truncated stages, you had all of this going on, and but here's Jonas coming out and looking dominant. He goes 3-on-1 with Red Bull one day, comes out on top, despite insane weather issues and crazy rain and cold. He's able to, pull out 2 different stage wins.
Well, let's talk about that day. I mean, that was the day when things, in terms of the GC sort of started hotting up. That was stage 4 that you're referring to with
Yes.
insanely bad weather. The final third of the route is just like nasty with like just like harder and harder climbs. And there's mad echelons from the jump. Kevin Vokalon is a big loser. I mean, he was one of the guys that's going to be challenging Jonas in this race, and he missed that group. So from basically from the start of the GC competition of this race, Vokalon's already back, and we'll I'm sure talk about the time gaps at the close of this race. It's part of the Jonas story are the time gaps. But yeah, the big story on stage 4 was.
The weather and the wardrobe.
Oh
So,
wait, the Wana Yuso is
oh,
the big story.
Juan Ayuso has to do with the weather. So, in the weather, you have a big separation of you essentially have 2 pelotons going at one point in this race, and a lot of the favorites had made it. Vocalon had not, but
Right.
Juan Ayuso was up in the main in favorites,
Hmm.
grouping,
Danny
and
Martinez is up there.
yeah, he had a lot of different
Jonas is in
riders up
there.
there, but somewhere off camera we have an accident, and obviously Ayuso is the biggest competition in this race for Jonas. I mean, and
Hmm.
it's the first time we're really getting a look at Juan Ayuso this year as well. So the big question marks surround. I mean, this guy just got a big contract to lead his own team, and he is the guy. Like, he is the main GC focus for Little Trek now, and this is the first time that we're really getting to see him in a stage race and see what he can do. And
Well, no,
sadly,
he won a stage race like 2 weeks ago. The one of the Spanish ones. So
right,
we
but
have seen him in a stage race, but this is like
it's not a world
top
tour
tier.
stage race. Yeah.
Yeah, top tier.
So you know, very sadly, off camera, there is some sort of pretty big wreck, takes out, multiple riders. But when we get the next look at Ayuso, he was down, then he gets back on the bike. And then, he's looking really rough. His kit's all shredded up on the left hand side. And I don't think it's but another minute or two, and you see him on the ground.
Yeah, harrowing images. It was really, really unpleasant because, when there's a crash, I mean, the first thing when there's a crash is Bob Roll going, "Oh no!" So we hear Bob Roll's, "Oh no!" And then I think the first image we get is you see somebody off on the side, and it looks like there's like one of those gullies, like little 3 foot deep, like gully running along the side of it. You don't see Ayuso, but you hear them say, well, Ayuso's down, but we hadn't seen him yet. And then the next shot you get is
Well,
Ayuso on the bike.
there was two wrecks, and one of them happened right before the Ayuso wreck, and it was almost on camera. If you go back, you'll be able to see a rider literally flip off the peloton, like
Right.
into the grass,
I remember
like,
that.
and you're like, whoa, and it's not. But within minutes of that happening, or maybe even in a minute, that's when you hear, oh no, Ayuso's, off the bike or whatever.
Right. Well, the
And
point I was going to make about that is like we hear first that Ayuso's had a crash, but then the first we see him, he's on his bike. So immediately you're thinking, oh, whew, thank God he's on his bike. At least there's that. He might lose some time, and then like you very quickly before the shot is even over, you're like, oh no, wait a second, like
he's
he's on his bike,
struggling.
but this guy's in bad shape. And they cut away to something else. And when they come back to Ayuso, he is prostrate on the ground. I'm getting vibes of Jonas and you know
Hmm,
20,
hmm.
in 2024. Like it was bad. Like I'm thinking, oh God, this could be real, real bad. And as it turns out, I believe no broken bones. And we looked at his PCS, and he's on the slate for early April. He's going to be back in action in 3 weeks or so. So the prognosis is good, but for any type of challenge to Jonas Vingegaard, the prognosis is not good in this race at this
Yeah,
point.
and I mean, he immediately abandoned, and that was it. And by the end of the stage, Jonas had a healthy lead on the GC contenders.
Well, let's talk about the end of the stage because
Yes.
when the dust settled after this crash, we find an interesting foursome with a VIP passenger aboard.
Yes, this is true. So Red Bull has the Van Dyke twins, former teammates to Jonas Vingegaard, doing all of the work
Well, they have
for
Nico Denz first. They have
Nico Day. Yes,
Nico Denz and the Van Dykes, and then they're working for uh, uh,
Martinez.
yeah, Danny Martinez. Um, yeah, and they're just bossing it, and Jonas is just like doo, 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 just hanging on, just hanging on. This is where Jonas decides it's time to get myself geared up properly for the finish of this race. You wanna
Yes,
you wanna take
and
us through that?
he leaves out for the day super bundled up. Like, he's got all kinds of different layers on. But
From bottom to top, it was bib shorts,
yes,
jersey, Bib shorts, jersey, base layer turned backwards and unzipped for
Yes.
easy removal. Then long bib longs
Yes.
that have been that
Over
as
top
we
of
learn have been
all of that.
modified, and
And
then
then the
on top
raincoat.
of that, and then the raincoat on top of that. Right.
Yeah.
So he starts taking it off. So first thing, raincoat
Yes.
comes off. No problem. We're good.
Yes, the raincoat comes off, and he has on his backwards.
No,
Essentially, I'm
first
assuming
no,
it's
he's got his
downhill
bibs over
protection.
that
Yeah,
because he has to take the bibs down to get
yeah.
that
So sorry, the
off.
bibs are on top of that. You're right. Bibs come down, and he has like the backwards jacket on to kind of simulate the old school newspaper feel because you have some descents. Some I'm assuming very cold descents on this day because
Yeah, this is where
it
it
was
started going
yeah.
lumpy at the end of this stage.
Yes. Very, very cold descents. And so they were prepared for that. And then the thing that you see once he gets rid of the raincoat and you start to see the juxtaposition of his yellow kit versus the long bibs, you realize that the bibs are kind of like shredded in a way, like they're cut in certain places. They just look kind of disheveled and
When you and also it should be said like they didn't pick him up on camera until after he had gotten rid of the raincoat. Like you saw
yes,
him, they were riding along, and then the next you saw the raincoat was gone, the bib short shoulders were flapping around at his waist, and he had on this gray. It was not like color coordinated in any way. It was like a
right.
gray under thing, and it was flopping along. It was like flapping along. So the very first image, because I remember Bob Roll being like, "What's going on? Like what's happening there?" Like you just see him,
Their
and he's just got
sensibilities
like,
are so taken back.
yeah, it was just bizarre. You never see these. You never see the bib shorts like flopping around somebody's waist or whatever. It was crazy from the jump. Yeah. So
Right.
the shorts are shredded. He gets the base layer off. The shorts are shredded at like they're looking all thin and they don't look like regular bib shorts or
Right.
bib.
And we don't find out until later the why of it, but he's isolated at this point. He doesn't have any teammates around him, and it's Martinez and the two Van Dykes, and Tim Van Dyke is just crushing on the front. Like he is just putting in a pace for the ages. And it's going too fast for Jonas to do anything about what's going on, except for to flap those straps right back up and just keep on. And so now it looks like
Right.
he's wearing suspenders and bib shorts on the outside, which looks utterly ridiculous in every possible
And
way.
the bib shorts are acting like a sail, like they are
Yes, they're
puffed
catching
up
so
with
much
air.
wind.
It's
Yes,
like it looks like he's pregnant or something. Like it's
yeah,
just it's so unbelievably bizarre looking, and Jonas is unfazed at all.
no.
He's just like, oh, this is not something I am worrying about right
You
now.
know what he
Like it is
was?
what it is.
Warm.
Yeah, he was warm. He was warm, and let's just sort of give everybody the backstory on what the plan was.
Yeah, so what you come to find out after the race was the reason that the bibs were shredded was so that his teammates could literally rip them off of him so he wouldn't have to like stop to take any clothes off. So they literally set it up so that Vic Campenarts and Timo Kielik can rip WWE style Hulk Hogan his pants off
Right, there's
so
gonna be
that
like
he
a
can
drag queen show on the side of the road, and Perry
so,
Nice with Jonas Vingegaard and his two buddies like ripping his stuff off. Hello, world! Let's race to the top of the mountain.
so but because Red Bull is pushing the advantage so hard, the teammates aren't able to keep up with him through the climbs. So by the time he gets done with these wicked descents and he's ready to shred the clothes for the final climbs, he doesn't have anybody around to help him. So he literally has no choice but to maintain the pants, all right, with the bib, so to pull the bib shoulders back up and continue with the race and finish the race in this way, and of
and
course
and finish the race. He did.
yeah, and of course Bob and Christian are like losing their minds over it, like they're just beside themselves about how weird he looks, but in the end, it benefits him. He stays warm. He doesn't end up stressing himself, in this really, really bad weather situation that they were in where it was extremely cold. And, he gets to the end and he's warm and fresh and,
Yeah, at the
despite
end
the
of the
fact
day,
that,
he's a hard ass Dane, and they threw
yeah,
a 4-on-1 on this guy. They had him 4-on-1 for the last, multiple kilometers of this race. He took it completely in stride. We had a little bit of a divergence in how we saw the Red Bull team's performance. I think they did absolutely everything they could have done, and especially the extra effort from Tim Van Dyke was pretty astounding. I mean, he was a big revelation, honestly,
I
on that
mean,
stage, but like
he, I just
they
think that
they
he
delivered
pushed.
Danny Martinez to 1 kilometer from the finish, the steepest part of the thing. At that point, it's on Danny, and Jonas is just way stronger than him. They weren't going to beat Jonas
I
with
think they could
tactics.
have pressed less. There's no chance that Jonas does any work in this situation. There's three of them. By the point where it really matters, there's three of them. There's one of him, and they could have slowed the pace down slightly. It wouldn't have factored in for the rest of the rider, the rest of the race, and you maybe don't ride Martinez out of the saddle by the end of the race because I think that Tim Van Dyke had a much better form than either of his brother or his other teammate that day, and he rode them right off the wheel because he rode his brother off the wheel, within the last 5K or 10K of the race, and it was down to just him and Martinez, and of course Martinez is going to be able to hang with him on the climbs. I just don't know how much Martinez had in the tank at the end because Jonas put like a minute into him in the last kilometer. I mean, it was
Yeah.
disgusting how far ahead he ended up getting at the end of that stage. I mean, he
Yeah.
completely ran away with it.
Well, it was a huge statement. The very next day, he won the next stage. Um, he was out in front by so far that Rob Hatch was, or no, um,
Bob and Christian.
Bob, yeah, Bob and Christian were talking about how, like, on days like that, um, riders will take that as just like a training opportunity because normally the roads are not closed. Um, and you get way far ahead, and yeah, you could ease off the gas because you're not going to lose when you get that far ahead, but you got a closed course and a real opportunity to just like boom, I'm going to go hard. I can try everything that I need in a race in this particular situation. The man is on great form. He's going to smash
By the end of that stage, 3 minutes and 22 seconds on the GC.
Yeah, he's going to smash the Giro to smithereens. It bodes so well for Grand Tour season. He did get beat by Lenny Martin. Was it Lenny Martinez?
From
Yeah.
Bahrain. Yep.
hmm But that was to be expected. That guy is super, super fast. Even though he's a little mountain guy, he's a really, really fast sprinter. So, and Jonas didn't need to win that sprint. Um,
No.
yeah, very
So
excited to see what this guy can do. Even though he is on your fantasy squad, so.
welcome back, Jonas. The other big, or maybe little storyline this week was small teams winning big. Obviously, we're big fans of EF Education Easy Post. They are, not the only American team anymore, but they're one of the American teams, and we root for them pretty hard all the time, no matter what. Matt's best friend is on the team. I don't know if you guys are aware. Nielsen Palace, Matt, they're super tight. But they came into the week winless and came out of the week with 2 wins. They
And a white jersey.
and a white jersey, and they opened up their card on stage 1 of Paris-Nice, winning a sprint against some pretty good competition, and Luke Lamperti was able to not only take the win but also put on the yellow jersey for stage 2, which is huge for this team. Huge.
Yeah, and he did not he didn't have like top tier competition outside of Biniam Girmay, but he did really well one on one versus Biniam to keep him behind him. Biniam was trying to push through on the barrier, and Lamperti maintained a super straight line that just did not have enough room for Benny to get by, and Benny had to stop pedaling. So it was a great win. Really good work from Marijn Vandenberg to lead him out.
Yes.
Vandenberg also sprints and also gets lead out. So great teamwork. It bodes well. And then the other win was from the other race.
Yeah,
Who
so in Tirreno-Adriatico later in the week, um, long, a guy that has not won in many years, probably 4 or 5 years at this point, Michael Valgren ends up taking another win for EF in a solo breakaway move, and it was a really nice win for him because obviously he was injured and he was essentially put on the heap. And what's really interesting about his situation was the team never gave up on him, and this is one of those reasons why you got to really respect JV and in this team. A lot of teams would look at the situation and give up on him, and they never gave up on him. They let him work his timeline. He got back in, and he hasn't won in a couple of years, but he's been there working really, really hard, and he was obviously very, very good on the day, and was able to take this win.
Yeah, and
And
you mentioned it was a solo win. It was only a solo win for the last 5.7 kilometers. Before that, he had uh, a great companion for the breakaway, and that was one Lulu. Um,
yes, Julian Alaphilippe, they were out front for the longest time, and um, at one point Lulu just wasn't able to hang with him, and finally gave it up and rolled back to the peloton.
yeah, and we got some nice moments after the finish line with both Ben Healy, who gave him a massive hug, and you could just tell how totally happy for him he was. And then Lulu came up, and Valgren was somewhat like apologetic to Julian Alaphilippe
He
for
told him
leaving
he
him
was sorry
behind,
for
and
dropping him.
Alaphilippe was like, "Nah, man, you had the legs, bro. Enjoy this moment.
Yeah.
You done earned it." So
Lulu was speaking of small teams. Lulu was animating a lot this week, so he's going to be in the mix come this weekend. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, absolutely. Ooh, that would be great. Um,
The other team and then Georg Steinhauser also took home the young riders jersey in that class. The young riders classification.
Yeah,
Um,
he Steinhauser ended up on one of those days. He ended up as like as like the lone chaser on one of the days where there were some big gaps made, and that was
yeah,
and then to his credit, he just kind of hung in there for the rest of the race.
yes, he did, and took second place that day. I'm 90% sure. So Um, the other team that had a lot of success this week is one that we mention a lot on this race or on this show as a team that is really, really good at the game of cycling as far as points are concerned, and that's Astana. XDS Astana had 2 wins in Paris-Nice. The first one, a very unexpected sprint win for Max Cantor. That is guaranteed the first time that Max Cantor has probably ever been mentioned on the show up to this point, but had a statement win, and then Tejada also had a win and a third place, and they ended up with 9 top 10s this week across both races. And this is a team that we've said before really knows how to go out and collect points. And they typically do it in these smaller races, but it's so refreshing to see them win in a world tour race. Like,
Mhm.
I'm all for it.
Well, I want to call special attention to the Harold Tejada win in stage 6 of Tirreno.
Yes.
He had a mech at 18.6 kilometers to go. The break is still a minute and 27 ahead, and the chase is like hotting up. The team did an incredibly good job to plan his return to the peloton here, because like that close to the finish in a situation like this, you could be in rough shape trying to get back, especially when things are as they are, minute and
It's
27
tough to
ahead.
just get back in the main group.
So the minute he gets the exactly, well, the minute he gets the mechanical, Cantor stops with him, and then they very purposefully position additional riders at intervals ahead of him. So they got Nikola Conchi next, a little further up the road, and then they got Yevgeny Fedorov a little further up the road. And so basically, he gets back on his bike. Cantor goes balls to the wall until they get to Conchi. Then Conchi goes balls to the wall until they get to Fedorov, and then Fedorov goes balls to the walls until they get him back into the peloton. And suddenly he sneaks back in, and they're like in battle stations at 10 kilometers to go. They're heading up the final climb. The leaders are still ahead, and you've got like all the big boys up there. You got Jonas, you got Kevin Vogelon, Danny Martinez is up there with them. Georg Steinhauser, we were just talking about, just behind. There's a couple of sprinters that are still like hanging on. You got Lawrence Piffy and Trentin, because there could be a bunch heading into the finish, and the sprinters are going to be the best position in that case. And then who suddenly just teleports out of nowhere and is at the front of this group? Harold Tejada. The team has gotten him back. Said, "All right, man, we did our job. Go do yours." And my man comes around. He ends up on the front. He momentarily sits on, and then 4.6 kilometers to go, he's gone. He's 11 minutes ahead of Jonas.
11
Jonas
minutes
got nothing.
back. Yeah.
Or I mean, Lemon's back of Jonas, so Jonas has got nothing to worry about. He doesn't need to put in the work, and Tejada manages to hang on. It's his second. It's his second ever win, and his second win for Astana in the race. Like,
That's great.
fantastic,
Yeah. I
great,
mean,
great work from that team.
super, super, super good work.
It's
On
interesting how they didn't do their usual thing where they're putting like multiple guys in top tens of these races. Yes, they had some top tens here and there over the two races, but they balanced that out with getting two wins. You know
yes,
what I mean?
and trust
So
me, I'm sure that they love the top tens, but wins. The sponsors love wins. You know what I mean?
absolutely,
The guys
absolutely.
paying the bills like to see them on the podium. So, you know, big and great job for them.
Yeah, and Tejada also moved himself into the top 10 in that stage.
Yes. Other small teams doing things. I wouldn't necessarily say they are a small team, but Alpecin does not obviously have the biggest budget, is as big a budget as some of these other teams, and they were able to pull out 2 wins with Matthew van der Poel. But Continental team Pulte Visit Malta goes away with a jersey. All right. Diego
DDM.
Sevilla, who spent days in the breakaway, all right, comes out with the King of the Mountains jersey for Tirreno-Adriatico, the only jersey that Isaac Del Toro did not win. So,
Hmm.
wonderful work on their part. Huge for that team. You know what I mean? That is a giant result for that team.
Yeah.
In a big race, in a big world tour race. So, that bodes very well for them here in the future. And he's definitely a guy that we're going to keep our eye on. Then, last day of Paris-Nice, Bahrain Victorious' own, one of the other GC Martinez's, Lenny
There's a lot of them.
Martinez, went head to head with Jonas and ended up taking the win.
Yeah. Lenny, that guy's good.
Oh,
That
yeah.
guy's good.
He's very, very
Um,
good.
yeah, really cool seeing all those wins spread out across some of those teams, because the rest of it was all super teams. It was Ineos, it was UAE, it was Visma Lease Bike, it was
Well, and then
Decathlon.
in the other race this week, it was another big team win in the weather truncated Trofeo Binda for the ladies.
Hmm.
Caroline Swinkles for UAE was able to, from a breakaway group with Anna van der Breggen and Mia Oderstad, she was able to take the win there as well. So big teams won the races for
Yeah,
sure.
it's funny how that team has sort of quietly become like the dominant team on the women's side, and it's just like, oh yeah, it's UAE, right? Got it.
Yes, yeah, it is. It
Understood.
is.
I mean, one of
It's
my top
another.
riders is on that team, so I have a rooting interest, but like here we go again with the sports washing, you know.
I will say there was a really sweet moment with your one of your top riders before the race for Alfredo Benda. ELB was like kind of like going to go up on stage for the team presentation, and her husband Jacopo Mosca was at the fence, like right by the steps to go up on the stage, all kitted out in his little Trek gear,
Yeah.
and gave a little kiss to his wife as she ran up on stage. It was
I
really
love it.
sweet.
I absolutely love it. They're cute.
So, um, but yeah, man, it was a great week of racing. It was nice to have like full on stage racing and multiple stage races going on at the same time. So it was a fun week to 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 see what was going on. Milan had his rocket ship launch off of the on the last day of the of Tirreno Adriatico, where sadly,
Off an incredible lead out from Edward Tunes.
well, and sadly, in that at the end of that race, there was a wreck, and it took out Magnier and Phillips, and so there was nothing doing there as far as that sprint.
I also
So
believe that Isaac Del Toro went down in that same at that same exact spot when that was happening. I watched that video multiple times, and he was in the blue jersey, so he's wearing all blue, and very visible. And he appears to be on the far left of the group, going through the curve. He's headed directly towards a gendarme who's like signaling, go left, one of those people. You can see very clearly at the very beginning of the shot his two teammates that were ahead of him. He had like Jan Christian and somebody else with him, um, and you see them go through that turn. And I think he just sort of got in the direct line of that gendarme, and then I think his tire hit one of the painted white stripes on the road, and he just slipped out. And I think it was like a no big deal crash. He just popped back up on his bike. He's about to win it, the biggest race of his life. About 30 seconds from then, and I don't even think he
yeah,
even cared. He's like, oh well, I'm on the deck now. I'm back on my bike. Now I'm going to go win this race. And also, the finish of that race when he rode across the finish line. Did you catch that?
they got all together as like a team,
Yeah,
right?
they
Yeah.
flanked him just like it's like processional in the Tour de France.
Hmm.
They had like three guys on his left, three guys on his right. He's in the middle. He's wearing the all blue, and they all keep their hands on the bar. He sits up and just kind of gives a something or some kind of gesture with his hands, because he hadn't won the stage actually,
Right.
but he was still winning the race, and it was a nice moment as well for them. So
Speaking of nice moments, G was in the car in Tirreno Adriatico, which was
mhm.
kind of neat. And I just have to say, like, we were focused on the small teams. Another big team that was doing a lot this week and did a lot of work was Ineos. Ineos had a lot of success.
Yeah.
Broke a record on the time trial with Ghana, won a stage there. Dorian Godin had a crazy week, winning a
Hmm.
stage and out sprinting his competition. Um, and
Sam Welsford is still unable to win,
oh god,
unable to
poor
win a
Sam,
race in Europe.
Poor Sam Wellsford.
He's got a good attitude about it.
Yes, but
You can keep
so
up
there's
with
a
it.
team that the G effect seems to be a thing. So because they're definitely working really really well, man. That's a team that is like finding ways to win. Even though they're not really particularly competing for the GC, they are finding ways to be involved. And dude, I'm telling you, they're doing a lot of work on the front of those pelotons, man. A lot.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's really strange watching that team with the Grand Tour tradition that they have, and with I mean, we heard Garen Thomas state very clearly at some point earlier this year that like the point for him being back is to win Grand Tours. He's like, no, that we're a Grand Tour team. Like that is the focus for this team, and yet they don't really have that guy. I mean, they have Rodriguez. He's been spotty. They have Timon Ahrensman. He had a crappy week. They have Egan Bernal. Is he viable? Like they don't really
Who's
have that
the
guy.
other one? Oh, Vokalon. right?
And then they got Kevin Vogelon again. Like
Yeah.
they have some talent that could be emergent, and some talent that's just going to always be questionable.
I just think that
But
I think
they're
they need
they're
to, I
finding
think
ways
they
to
need
get
to
things
start,
done.
they need to build around the nucleus and figure out what they got there. But hey, look, man, they got wins this week. Nobody can say that it was a bad week for them by any stretch. Did they not win the top prizes? No, but they were in the mix a lot.
For sure.
So, on that note, we'll be back to talk fantasy cycling and take a rain-soaked ride in the Broom Wagon. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are going to jump into an update on our in-house fantasy cycling game, which was pretty crazy to say the least. As these races, end at different times, so I'm kind of updating things as we go along, and it was very interesting going into the last day yesterday of Paris-Nice. I was down by more than 100 points, I believe, at that point, and it had been just a completely wild week of Matt picking up stage wins with Matthew van der Poel, and then me picking up stage wins with Jonas Vingegaard, and it was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Wait, I think you're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit though, because like going into it, like it was a tantalizing week from the outset because we both had the favorite GC rider going into the week.
Correct.
We both had very strong stage win guys as well. Me with Vanderpool, and you with just sprinters galore. Like you had Jonathan Milan. No,
I had
you had
Milan.
Milan.
I had Meunier. I
Yeah,
also had Ayuso as well
right.
as Vingegaard.
Right. So you had a GC and a backup GC, so you were a little bit more stacked. Now, as we have talked about, Yuso went out when the GC action started, so he wouldn't. Not only did he not contest the overall win in that race, but he didn't even get a chance to maybe get a stage win without getting the overall win. You know what I
He
mean?
did get a second place though in the team time trial, so he did collect points.
True that. Interesting. So you got a little production out of him,
Tiny bit.
but nonetheless, it was a tantalizing week in terms of us both having guys in there that could make things happen, and that's exactly what happened. Like our guys came up big,
Yes. So
like big time.
so
Like any other week, either one of us would have crushed the competition. It seems like, and like just somehow this week was just mirror it. Like it was wild.
it's a literal mirror image. So we both ended with 3 stage wins. You had 2 with Vanderpool and 1 with Del Toro. I ended with 2 with Vingegaard, 1 with Milan. All right, because Johnny Milan won the final sprint in a just complete
Boy,
rocket
did you get
ship
lucky.
of a sprint. Good
That
lord,
who was his lead out guy that day?
I can't remember.
I know I have it in my notes, but that was an absolutely
Just a
incredible lead out
rocket.
that he got.
We both picked up 2 second place victories. All right. So your 2 second places were with Isaac Del Toro because he had a tremendous week where he had a stage win and 2 second places. And then I also ended up with 2 second places, one with Juan Ayuso in the team time trial, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Ed Toons was his lead out guy on that thing and was
Oh, yeah.
outstanding work from that guy. I mean, they
Well,
were
they came
they
out of
were back
nowhere.
in 10th, and all of a
Yeah. I
sudden it
mean, they
was
were
just like
just.
a bullet.
And then so at that point, before you get to, so just based on the stages themselves, we were in a dead tie. And then so you figure, the jerseys are going to be the thing that separates us. Except for your GC guy came out with 3 jerseys. My GC guy came out with 3 jerseys. Mine was a little more dramatic because he had to kind of make some, Jonas had to make some moves on the last day and
Mhm.
make that final stage much more interesting. Um,
And it should be noted that Jonas got 3 out of 3 jerseys that he was eligible for, while
Correct.
Del Toro only got 3 out of 4.
That he was eligible for. So
Right.
the Del Toro did not get King of the Mountains, like we said earlier. That went to Pulte Visit Malta rider Sevilla. So, but he did win the GC and the points and the Young Riders classification. So he walks away with 3 jerseys. Jonas won the GC, the KOM, and the points jerseys at Paris-Nice,
It's
and
just
came away
comprehensive.
with 3 jerseys. So those are 75 points each. We both had 101 point weeks, identical weeks. How
It's
crazy is that?
It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. Well, the standings now stand at
Uh, Matt, you are leading at 266, and I am trailing at 235.
a
And then
mere
we have
31
a
points behind.
plethora of people going this weekend for MSR. So I think
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of riders that are going to be in the mix,
it just
but
bodes so well.
but you have Pagachar, so we'll see what happens. Although
Well,
I keep the big thing I keep hearing is like. It's Vanderpool's. You also have Vanderpool, but it's Vanderpool's race to lose. He looked so good this week that I
yeah,
don't see him. I mean, when it's time, you know what I mean? You
yeah.
got 200
He doesn't make
kilometers.
mistakes. He doesn't crash, and his power output is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Stop talking, and let's go to our next segment before you start stepping all over my broom wagon.
Oh, sorry. All right. What do you have for the broom wagon there, sir?
I'm talking about Tadej Pogacar. Um, So, in reviewing some data from the big race 2 weekends ago, Strada Bianchi, we see that Pogacar put out an average of 380 watts over the last 80 kilometers. Now, if you contrast this with the 340 watts average he had over the same finishing kilometers in the previous 2 editions, which he won, um, he needed 10% more power this year to maintain the gap. And yet his margin of victory this year was smaller, which sort of means that the competition is getting better. So if you consider the strategizing for UAE, however, what you realize is that his power enables the rest of the team to ride an effectively shorter race than everyone else does. Um, Basically, the team's race ended at 120 kilometers at the top of the Monte Santa Maria. This means that they can more easily go full gas for basically the entire first 120 kilometers, making it insanely hard on all of the other teams, as Tom Pidcock was alluding to in his very distraught post-race interview, which I don't know if you heard or not, but he was really just like befuddled. I mean, yeah, he had some mechanical issues and stuff, but he was just like, wow, what are you supposed to do when like it's that fast from the gun? So how does all this shake out for MSR? Is there a way that this formula can be applied to Poggy's most frustrating puzzle, the Monument Race, which the cycling world agrees will be the Slovenian superstar's most difficult nut to crack? Well, as always, the route is one of the longest of the year, coming in an astounding 298.2 kilometers. That's a little over 185 miles, by the way. The summit of the first real climb of the race comes at 148.4 kilometer mark, the Passo del Torcino. It's followed by a long 12-kilometer downhill and then 60 essentially flat kilometers before reaching the first of the Tre Capi climbs, which then lead on to the set-piece finish of the Cipressa and the Poggio. Is there a possibility that the team could go TTT at the highest level they possibly can for 145 kilometers, delivering Poggi to the start of the steepest part of the Torcino, and that he can then go as hard as he's ever gone to get clear of his rivals over the top, and then stay away for a full 150 kilometer solo and somehow reach the Cipressa with a lead? Let's drill down on the top part of the Torcino. Roughly 2 kilometers before the summit, the road pitches up to around 6% and then hovers there for about a kilometer and a half. And it's only in the final 500 meters of the climb that it goes up to about 8.5%. Is that steep enough and long enough to make a difference? Can the team make it so hard for 145 kilometers that Pog's rivals will be feeling it enough to lose his wheel on such a comparatively short and not too steep climb? Because if they can't, the Tre Capi doesn't start until kilometer 248. And I don't think the team can effectively TTT at full gas for that long, let alone to the foot of the Cipressa, which is at kilometer 271. This is honestly one of the biggest and best questions in all of pro cycling, and most certainly the most interesting thing about Tadej Pogacar as far as actually racing bikes is concerned. MSR is just 4 short days away, and I, for one, cannot wait. What do you got?
Dude, that's like...
Or would you like to react to that?
I would like to react. So it makes me wonder, okay, is that the method, or do they try to just keep everything together for as long as they can so that he can then do the same thing but later in the race? I don't see, like, look, he's amazing.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if
the
he
next
can
chance
do
would be
150 by himself, like.
But can the team do 271 kilometers?
But would they have to? Okay, but would they have to really team time trial for 270 kilometers? Would they have to make the race that hard, or could they get to like 150, get over that climb, and start to press at that point to try to, essentially? I mean, the only thing that I could see them doing is like some sort of like 6-man breakaway, where they just try to bury everybody and just keep everybody off their wheel to get him separation after that point. Like, how they do it prior to that point, prior to that climb, it just seems so far away. But he's also a completely different machine from everybody else, because what you just told us is that he's getting stronger. He's not getting. He's not.
Well, no. This time it took him more power. It took him more power to maintain a smaller gap.
Yes, but his power output is getting bigger.
Yeah.
His threshold is getting higher.
It remains.
Now it also you see, but you're right. So you said that the competition's getting better, so that's part of it. Okay, he needed more power to be able to do the same thing because who he was competing with was more on his level. But that just means that he hasn't ever put it into full gear yet, and we don't even know if that was the full gear. That's just what
he does win a lot of these races like with ease.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't see him get pushed to the edge very often.
And he's just got an absolutely incredible team, although I don't know what McNulty's status is. He crashed right before Ayuso did in that race. And I think he may have got it a little worse than Ayuso, so he might not be around as part of that engine room for MSR. It remains the best question in cycling. That is to be sure.
He still got second last year, right? Or was he third?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Is it being completely overthunk? Does he just hang in there the way he has every time and just hope for a different outcome? Because on his day, maybe something happens, or does he go all Matej Mohoric on the downhill of the Poggio at the very end of the race and just try to do it that way? I mean, he ain't a better bike handler than Matthew Van der Poel. See, that's the trouble, is all of Van der Poel's strengths lie in the stuff that you need to do at the very end of this race: sprint and downhill. He is the better of Tadej Pogacar in those two disciplines. Even though we can very easily argue that Pogacar is higher on the all-time list. You know what I mean? He's a more comprehensive rider that can win in any number of formats. But in this one particular thing, it is just, and Van der Poel's going to keep showing up year after year after year. So it's what it does, though. We've long said that like the last 10 minutes of Milan San Remo are the 10 best minutes of the year in cycling. this conundrum is now making it the best 6 hours of cycling. You know what I mean? Like it's a long race.
Do you think that it's the same three from last year this year? Do you think because both Vanderpool and Ghana look really good right now.
Oh
All
yeah,
right,
oh yeah.
because Ghana, you realize that Ghana set a record in Tirreno-Adriatico, right? Okay, so not only did he crush the time trial, he set a record for the race for the fastest like kilometers per hour, as well as the record on the time trial. So
Hmm.
you know his form looks really good. He was doing massive turns in that race all the way deep into it, and then Vanderpool basically used the last stage yesterday as just a 125 kilometer training run.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Before he finally was like, okay, I've done enough for today, and backed off. But
No, no,
he was
I'm with
leading
you.
that race. He was leading that stage for 2 hours yesterday.
Hmm.
So
Um,
they're all on amazing form right now. So it should be very interesting.
no, it's going to be fantastic. The bad news for me, I'm announcing a swim meet all weekend long next weekend, so I will not be watching it live. I will be catching it in replay. So just don't even text me at all on Saturday because I won't be looking at my texts.
All right,
Saturday is the race on Saturday or Sunday?
it's Saturday. I'm pretty sure it's Saturday. I think they're all those
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
those
it's
are
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
the bigger race is on Sunday. The Grand Prix Jean Pierre Montserrat.
All right. I have two little things that I want to say, and then I'll get into to my actual broom wagon. Um, there was two things that I caught this week that I was like, damn, those are really cool. Have you seen the little Trek team car?
Yeah.
That best team car in sports or in cycling. Period. That car is cool as hell looking. All right. It is so on the nose with how their uniform looks.
Hmm.
Chef's kiss. I put a picture in my notes if you want to see it. And then Arthur Cluckers, who is the
Great name.
champion of super name,
We got to
is
start a
the
file.
champion of Luxembourg. I love his champion's kit. It almost looks
Did you put a
French.
picture in?
Yeah, I did put a picture in. It almost looks French, but it's slightly different. The red is slightly different. The blue is slightly different. But boy, does that kit look good on him, man.
Yeah. I kept wondering about that kid. So yeah, that's the Luxembourg. Yeah, I
That is
remember.
the Luxembourg kit.
I remember when who was the guy that had it before him? Anyways, yeah. All right.
And then because it looks very similar to the one that Dorian Godin has for France, but it's just slightly different. And boy do I like it. All right, my broom wagon item for this.
Wait. If we're tacking in like extra stuff that we noticed from this week, I got one of those as well.
Sure.
Stage seven what was the one that Milan was in? Was that Paris-Nice or was that?
Torino.
Oh, it was Serena. Okay. At the 107-kilometer to go mark of stage seven of Tirreno-Adriatico this past Sunday, they go through a little town called Montefiore d'Alasso, right? And it is absolutely stunning. And I want to point out the camera work in this race in particular from the helicopter. I don't know. It would be interesting to compare like specific kinds of camera work and especially like helicopter camera work because I think there's probably a whole world that we don't know about where you've got like camera slash pilot teams, duos who work really well together, who know how to like compose shots really well because the shots that came in they're so good at it that you don't even notice it. unless you're really looking at it or something triggers you. But I'm noticing this town. So it's one of these classic Italian towns. It's like perched up on a hilltop, and it just looks so incredibly cool. It's a medieval village. It's got six towers, and it's got many of the original fortification walls. The lower slopes, like outside of town, are like covered in orchards and vineyards. I mean, it just looks so perfect. And the shot that they give you, all right, so the peloton is coming into town and they're like going through the vineyards, right, and you've got the helicopter sitting off to the side, and it's zoomed in on the riders, right, so you see them going past these trees and stuff, and then slowly as they enter the town it zooms out and you just get this shot of like the whole town. And now the peloton, it's gone in there someplace. It's somewhere inside the town where you can't see. And the helicopter kind of moves around to the edge, to the far end of the town. And just as it moves around, boom, you catch the Peloton again and it comes back in and it locks on. And they cut away for a second. They give you a front on shot from like a camera bike or whatever. And then boom, it's back to the helicopter just in time. You see the helicopter has now maneuvered itself over the town, and the riders are about to exit, and it picks them up as they're sort of making the bend past the last few buildings. It picks them up, and then it's kind of zooms across the top of the building, so you're seeing like the buildings going past underneath, but you still got your eye on the peloton out in front. And then boom, they're out the back door of the town, and the helicopter kind of follows them out, gets off to the side, and just gives you these, just like, it's just so poetic the way the thing is just snaking down these curves coming out of the town, and it's just like, as you said, chef's kiss. The camera work was just incredible. And they hit another town. There was one final climb with another town just like that, the Ripa Transone. And there's a bunch of really, really good work there as well. So just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah,
Please carry
there
on.
was a lot of good camera work this week,
Mhm.
especially in the Italian race. So my Broom Wagon item is just a small video that we'll link in the description that GCN Tech did a few months ago. The title of the video is "Motor Doping is Possible. We've Done It." It is an extremely interesting video where they get these two college guys to build a motorized a motor assist bike inside of like a pro bike. Like they give them the bike and they give them the materials, and they end up building a electromagnetic motor in this bike. It's terribly interesting. Like if
The
you're
magic,
into
the magic
cycling,
wheel.
yeah, it's like the magic wheel situation. Yes, but it totally works. And then they test it, and it is
It looks like they give you some background too. They show you
yes,
how the UCI does the testing. They show you the like hub motors versus electromagnetic. The different technologies that one
yes.
might
It's
choose. Right?
very very interesting. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like it's if you're interested, like obviously, doping is a big part of cycling. It's it is the 900-pound elephant that's in the room all the time. And this is the new as technology gets better and better and smaller, these are the things that come up. These are the things that come into play. There have been cases where motors have been found in professional cycling, and so it's very interesting to see them you know hypothesize this possibility and then show it. And then again, it's very clunky. It would easily get caught, based on the testing, but the technology is there and it does make a difference. So very interesting if you're interested in that type of stuff, or you just want to go a little bit deeper on the technology of what is possible to be done, with these types of situations. I highly recommend you take a look at it. Really, really fun video.
I did notice on at least one occasion this past week while watching pre-race stuff, like them very clearly showing the guy with the iPad, going over the bike, and I think they've got the sensor now. It's like built into the iPad or whatever the
Mm.
tablet is that they're using. Like the sensor is inside of it somehow because they're just holding it up and waving it over the different parts of the bike. But it's a shame. We spent a lot of time in the first like 6 months of this podcast talking a lot about how just insanely annoying it is that people here, the vast majority of the general public, the moment you mention cycling, it's just like doping, Armstrong, doping, cheating. Like, it's so annoying. And yet there's a reason why it happens, and it's a real shame that this is still a thing. I hope
because you have 300-kilometer races.
Yeah, it's wild.
All right. That's all for this week. Join us next week for full coverage of the year's first official monument race, Milan-San Remo. Until then, for my brother Matt, I'm Justin Harper. Thanks for listening. We hope you'll join us again soon for another ride beyond the slipstream. Ale.
Beyond the Slipstream is a production of Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe, smash that button, leave a 5-star review, and most importantly, tell all your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Ale!